Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? I don't know if my iPods are working. Super excited for this IG live we're about to do with Andrea Philly Walls. And then later on, Lisa Osborne is going to be joining us. And we're going to be talking about Black joy. So excited for this. Thanks, y'all, so much for joining us. It's Black History Month. Hey!
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You look amazing as always.
Why, thank you. I return the compliment. I'm receiving that red lipstick with so much joy.
I love the red lipstick. It's my favorite. It's
It
my favorite.
it feels necessary.
Yes, definitely today. Definitely. And I'm just so happy. I know we did our practice run, and I kind of felt like even with our practice run, we were getting into the conversation. But I'm just so excited to be speaking with you and about your brilliant project, the Museum of Black Joy. First off, I just want to say, y'all, to set the tone of this space. If you're not familiar with Black Radicals, we are a Black feminist advocacy organization dedicated to uplifting and centering Black feminist activism around the world. This IG Live is a safe space. Homophobia, queerphobia, ableism, racism, misogynoir, we don't accept it, and I will kick you out. So respect to the space, and most importantly, our amazing guests. So, Andrea, I gotta do you justice and read your bio because you're just popping, okay?
Why,
Um,
thank you.
so, Andrea Philly Walls is a multidisciplinary artist informed and inspired by the writers and visual artists of the Harlem Renaissance and Black arts movement. Yes.
Yes.
She is pleased that her writing, scholarship, and visual art have been supported by organizations she admires, including the Leeway Foundation, Vona Voices Workshop for Writers of Color, Hedgebrook Residencies for Women Authoring Change, the Color Girls Museum, Writers Room at Drexel University, the Studio Museum of Harlem, the Women's Mobile Museum, Eastern State Penitentiary and Mural Arts Philadelphia. I mean, let's go, let's go. In addition to the Museum of Black Joy, Andrea is the creator and curator of the darchive.com, author of the poetry chapbook Ultraviolet Catastrophes, Thread Makes Blanket Press, and the digital web collection The Black Body Curve. She wishes you joy. Andrea, what can't you do?
You know what? The creative impetus is about problem solving. You know, all of my creativity, just like so much Black joy, comes from this thing. I don't have something, I need and want something. Let me figure it out. Because ain't nobody trying to hand me nothing, give me nothing, lift me up. So let me figure out how to make some curtains out of some newspaper and some yellow spray paint. I mentioned that because I know someone who made these beautiful woven curtains out of nothing but discarded Tribunes, the Black newspaper here in Philadelphia, and an intention to have something beautiful hanging from the window. And that's, to me, that's Black joy. We make it up, we figure it out. You got somebody, something, this machinery standing on your neck, and yet you're reaching, and yet you are making and creating and saying, nah, I'm not staying down here just because you got your foot on my neck. So, that's just part of how I see it,
Yes, and that's so beautiful. And for folks coming in, we are speaking with the founder and creator of the Museum of Black Joy, Andrea Philly Walls. We will be later having a conversation with the amazing Lisa Osborne, who's Director of Emerging Media Initiatives at Black Public Media. Feel free in the chat to drop your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and also what brings you Black joy. Because it's Black History Month, Black Futures Month, and we're going to be talking about joy and creating joy, like you said, Andrea, when even they have their foots on our neck. And that's it's just from how Black folk are, right? We create in spite of. And so
That's
that's
right.
so beautiful. And also check out Black Public Media. They're in the chat dropping the Museum of Black Joy.com. Check it out, and blackpublicmedia.org. And so my first question for you is, like, you do everything, right? We just talked about that. But I really want to know why you created the Museum of Black Joy, particularly in Philadelphia, Philly, the city of brotherly love. Specifically, given that much of the mainstream media discourse about Philly is always very negative, and not really like uplifting the beautiful culture, community, particularly Black culture and community there. So why did you create the Museum of Black Joy?
You know, it was like so many things, truly a knee-jerk reaction. Um, you know, I've been walking through these streets my whole life, off and on, and all of a sudden it felt like the things and the places that held so many memories were disappearing. You
Mm.
know, we don't, you know, I used to call navigating through the city, navigating through charm, right? You didn't know the route. We didn't have GPS. You're like, yeah, you know, you go down, you know, to where Miss Rose's red garden is, and then you bang a left, and then, you know, so you navigate through these landmarks. And I noticed that the landmarks were disappearing.
Mm.
And all of these landmarks, you know, you call it gentrification, whatever names you want to give it. But it's my childhood. It was my archive, my embodied archive of knowing how to navigate my own city through this kind of magical, you know, carpet ride through the scenes that raised you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the stoop where you had your first kiss is indelibly, you know, registered on your soul. But that's how you navigate the streets. That's where you turn. And every time you turn there, you remember what happened there,
Mm-hmm.
what essential moment. And many of them, growing up in the city that takes a lot of pride in being hard, takes a lot of pride in, you know, the things that we're known for nationally,
Mm.
you know, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus, you know, having a, you know, a football stadium with a jail cell.
Mm.
These are some of the things that Philly is known for if you're not from Philly. You know, what Philly is known for if you're from here is like those windows, like down some dusty street where you could tap and get a dinner. Like back in the day, it used to be for $2. You get one of them church dinners, you know, and we knew where those places were. They weren't marked on any map. You would have never found them in the age of GPS. You
Mm.
had to know somebody. You had to have an auntie. You had to be at church service when they gave that information out.
Mm.
And we could navigate the city. You know, you would never give somebody's address. You would say, you know, third door down, red door with the potted geraniums on the stoop. Now, them geraniums might have been long dead, except in our memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, so for me, it became I became desperate to have an archive of these places that are disappearing. It feels like you drive up one street in the morning, and by the time you come home, they've replaced the
Mm.
place that you used to play hopscotch or double dutch with some generic kind of, you know, box place that you can't afford and doesn't include you in the plan, no
Mm.
matter how many treatises they have on affordable housing or affordable business landscape or opportunity zone. Opportunity for who?
Mm.
Um, and so, because of the blessing of this media arts apprenticeship that I did with the Women's Mobile Museum, through the divine intervention of a South African artist named Zanele Maholi, um, I was able to learn photography. I was given a camera,
Mm.
one that I would not have been able to afford at the time. So I thought, well, what resources do I have? I have a free camera and I have a long memory. And so it kind of came out of this need to record and to have evidence that we
Mm.
were here and that we
Yeah.
are here and that we're beautiful
Mm.
and that we're essential to the history, the story of the city.
Mm.
And so that's how I started. And then the thing that I felt was the narrative about our trauma, our our pathology, the things we are recovering from, that is taken care of. Like I didn't need to add to that story. But what
Mm.
do I know as an initiated member of this place called Philadelphia? You know, those of us who know where the bodies are buried, quite literally. Not the newcomers who think they know Philly because they know where the latest hotspot is. And they
Mm.
try to tell you about, oh, well, you got to check out this new restaurant or this new. I'm like, yeah, that's new Philly. I'm here to archive and present witness and evidence for Philly that you don't know anything about or have forgotten or have conveniently overlooked
Mm.
because you want to open an authentic cafe
Woo!
by burning down the real authentic shit. Please excuse my
No,
language.
you telling it. This is we need this Lipton tea, okay? We need it. And I thank you for saying that. And I just want to say I'm not from Philadelphia. I was born in Texas, actually, but my family on my mom's side came from the South, and eventually migrated to Philly to start a new life. And we're living in West Philly and now West Oak Lane. And I just remember like going to my grandmother's house and being so like, I mean, it was like this diner up the street that used to sell these popping hot wings off of Broad, and there's not there anymore. I used to go to
Right.
the West Oakland Jazz Festival, and I got to interview Roy Ayers and meet Shaka Khan. And I was like really young, and I was an intern for this newspaper. And these things are the Divine Lorraine Hotel when I went to Temple University. Oh, and now it's an apartment complex. And the prices are similar to that. I was living in DC for a while. The prices are similar to that. And I'm like, what is going on? But you have firsthand knowledge of things, or not things, but people, places, and things, right? That were
Yes.
for all that. And I think what you're doing is not only revolutionary, but for the future generations to come to remember this, and for yourself and others not to forget this. Like
That's
we are
right.
here, have been. So yes, tell all the shade all you want to in the tea about the new cat Fishtown and all.
You know,
all
in Fishtown, that's working class. That was a working class neighborhood that when I was growing up, you didn't go to. You know, Philly is known for being a city of neighborhoods, but it was very clear which neighborhoods you were welcome in. But that said, Fishtown doesn't recognize its own self. You know, that was a neighborhood of poor and working class white folks, Polish folks, um, people who have also been ousted. And when I think about the Museum of Black Joy, we have so much in solidarity with other poor people, other, you know, historically and systemically unloved people, and we're pitted against each other, but we have so much in common,
mm,
that if we could connect through our joy, um, that would be a real revolution, because it's these systems, the same systems that are pushing out poor folk, from Kensington,
Mm.
you know, it's the same system that has been operating so effectively against Black folks, you know, since the beginning. And I think by operating and practicing joy, I think we'll find more places to connect and to be in solidarity with one another. Um, and if we can get there,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be talking about power to face that power that's coming from above, right? You know, we'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to meet it and push it back up off of us.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I'm really interested in you talking about solidarity. You're talking about creating this archive of remembering not just like people, places, and things in Philly, but also the joy aspect of it. What have you, the Black joy aspect of it? And we're going to talk about what Black joy means to you soon. But what have you learned about yourself of curating the Museum of Black Joy? And what have been some of like the favorite, like, you know, photos or projects you worked on, or just, you know, moments in time doing this project?
So there's just so many. Honestly, every single one, it has nothing to do about technical, you know, like a great photograph in terms of technical and, you know, what can be published or, you know, um, it's about just deciding to look for, notice, and document the daily, mundane expression and experience of joy because it's popping all day, every day. And it's, you know, dad taking his daughter to school and her not wanting to put her coat on because she wants to show her fly outfit, you know, and him negotiating that. And I'm just walking by with my camera, and this is a moment that I want to archive and hold. Because how many stories have we heard about Black daddies who aren't there when I
Mm,
see them every single day,
mm,
going to work, coming
mm,
home from work, dropping the kids off? How come that story is not as available in the mainstream as it is to me in my day to day?
mm,
And so this is just really about, come on, equal time for this thing, this parallel narrative that is true. And I'm not saying that there's not hardship and trauma and dysfunction in the Black community, but that story has been told, documented, um, you know, overblown in media.
mm.
Um, and it feels like I'm trying to make these things remarkable. Okay, meaning let's remark on these things that most of us are very aware of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like me and, you know, me and my family, we say grace every single night before
Yeah.
we eat. We, you know, we say thank you. And you know, there have been times when that meal was meager, but it was always received with gratitude. And
Yeah.
there have been times where it was sumptuous, and the same gratitude exists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this work is about making space, giving the uninitiated access to these stories that you and I know so well, but don't see reflected outside of our daily lives.
Yes. Even just you saying grace, like even when I'm in public, I'm about to, you know, people are shocked looking at me saying grace, but I'm like, okay. Or just even like if you go on the museum of blackjoy.com, Black Public Media is putting the website in the chat, like you can see people like children roller skating or just people roller skating and going to like, you know, the park, or Black folks just like playing games, and elders, and just the quotidian and like the everyday. And it's like, why can't we just be seen in this element of just what we do every single day. This joy that we have amongst ourselves, and how we curate space and safe space for ourselves. And so I just love it. Check it out, museumofblackjoy.com. It's so beautiful. And I also just want to thank Michelle Z for introducing Andrea and myself. I went to Temple with Michelle, and just she sent me an email about Museum of Black Joy, and I was like, we need in Philly, like, yes. And thank you, Andrea, for creating this space where we can see the everyday, and to revel in the beauty of the quotidian. And I just appreciate that. And speaking of that, I want to know what Black joy means to you. And for folks in the comments, what does Black joy mean to you? If you are a black person, what does Black joy mean to you?
So, this question is very deep to and for me, because I distinguish it from happiness, this thing that is in the, Declaration of Independence, this American idea of the pursuit of happiness, because there's something so aggressive in that language, the pursuit. To pursue something is an aggressive act. And it is unsustainable and fleeting. Joy, to me, is something essential. It's something that can live simultaneously to grief. They're not mutually exclusive. In that way, when we have a homegoing ceremony for our loved ones, we can be in a moment of sorrow and an ecclesiastical joy at the same time, giving thanks for a life, a celebration of life. You can hold joy with grief, sorrow, and trauma. It is that thing that emerges from sorrow. It is that thing that I would say quantifies our endurance through history. It's a creative capacity. And I need to distinguish even further Black joy as opposed to joy. White supremacy is what creates Black joy. Without white supremacy, there is only joy. Without colonialism, without the Middle Passage, without years of enslavement, without segregation, without lynching, without, the history of Black people in the diaspora, we would just be known by our names. And that would be it. And we would be embedded in our culture. And if we sing, we sing. And if we are sad, we're sad. But Black joy was created at the moment that these white supremacists decided that they could own a body, that they would steal your land and look at you, like you never deserved it, like your ancestors were never buried there, like that land never fed you and your people. So that's why there is something called the Museum of Black Joy. That's why I'm collecting evidence. That's why we need an archive. Because when you go into these archives, the way the materials have been collected have been the same way these systems of white supremacy have collected Native American art, which they love and sell for thousands of dollars while they kill the people. And they collect the artifacts and they keep them in climate-controlled vaults.
Yes.
At an expense that, you and I can't even conceive of. They collect us and put us in these archives deny us access. They decide what the artifacts mean, even though they have no relationship with us. And when you go there to visit and you type in Black joy, it doesn't exist as a search term. Because they're not collecting the story of our well-being. They're collecting the story of how they captured and contained us, and belittled and made fun of us, and called us out of our name and misfiled us, and said we were this thing, because they could never, ever see or allow for the possibility of our true majesty. Because what kind of monsters would they be if they had to look at us in their collections and call us by our names?
Listen.
So
someone
so this
said
is
dropping gems, Andrea. I'm sorry. Keep going, please.
no, I'm just saying that, you know, Black joy, it has been made necessary by white supremacy, and I have to call it that. And it's not a discriminatory thing, because Black joy has created jazz and R&B and the blues and rock and roll and anything, the Lindy Hop, the Charleston, anything that you could call an American art has derived and emerged from Black people's capacity to be enslaved and sing, to be enslaved and dance, to be enslaved and put flavor in the pot and feed you something that will nourish you, when we could have poisoned every pot.
Woo! Whoa!
And yet we believe in life, and we believe in love, and knowing everything that we know, surviving everything that we have survived, we still look at a blank window and say, what I got around here to make me something beautiful to like, what, how are we going to turn some shit stained innards of a pig into something delicious?
Listen.
That these nouveau restaurants are now trying to serve you, you know, with a dollop of some beurre blanc and act like they invented that shit. You know, so they, you know, we create it. It rises like butter to the top. They siphon it, steal it, try to reinvent it and sell it back to you, never give you credit.
No.
And it doesn't matter, because next season we're going to invent something else out of your scraps. And you can't do that. No matter how much money you make, the exchange rate is still unbalanced, because our creativity is incomparable. And you can't take it, you can't own it. You can try to sell, you know, the crumbs of it, but no matter what you take, our joy is still there at the center of our sorrow.
I mean, y'all, like, what do you say after that? I felt like I was listening to a sermon. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, you should see the comments. Like, yeah, I mean, I couldn't even have said it better. I'm like at a loss for words, because you're so correct. And when you were speaking about the archives and how they've shaped our narratives, our stories, and our lives, make legislation from the archives, right, to demonize us. And it's reminding me of Sadia Hartman's Venus in Two Acts, talking about
Yes.
in the archives, there's these names of, they're just, unfortunately enslaved African girls, but they're dead girls, right? And what if they, like you were saying, what if they called us by our names? And I feel like with the Museum of Black Joy, you're calling Black folks in Philadelphia by their names, and giving name to the genius, the creativity, the brilliance, the range, because what you're saying is that these colonizers don't have the range.
At
They can't
all.
do. And so you are a poet. Yes. Whoever said that, the comments are going so fast, but you are seriously a poet. And just, I don't know. I'm getting so much joy from this conversation, especially in a world that tries to thwart our creativity, our lives, dispossess us at all sides. You are doing the work of saying, no, we are here. This is what we do every day, and you can't take this from us.
It's
Whew.
ordinary. It's ordinary for, you know what I mean? It's our ordinary, just sitting down to play cards,
Mm.
at any card table. I don't care. I'm from the pinochle generation, but I know, at a spades table, you always have like a poet and a historian and, somebody who's making language new every minute of the game, and you got the soundtrack in the background, and you got the Henny on the table, and you got the vibration of resistance and resilience. And even though I'm hearing now, like the way Black Joy is really connecting in the, media, the way they always come to siphon, and I'm hearing commercials, but they don't know what we're talking about, and so, and there's plenty of people out here doing it, Black Joy Project out in New York, the Color Girls Museum. I'm getting ready to head out to Oakland, I hope, for the Black Joy Parade to take some photos, to collaborate on some photos. I hate that word, taking photographs. I'm not trying to take them. I'm trying to be in resonance with them. And I really appreciate you so much for inviting me here, making space for this conversation. And I also want to call out Dr. Civil, who has written this book called Experiments in Joy,
Wow.
who Gabrielle Civil, and it's about making joy a practice. And I think it's so important to remember that joy, like love, is a verb. It requires action. And I'm thinking about, in any situation, is there something I can do to make it easier for myself and for the other person or persons involved, even if it's a conflict, instead of trying to win, trying to insert the element of joy. And by thinking of joy as a practice, it has really, in these very difficult, traumatic times, it has been really helpful to think that I can fine tune it like a radio, to transition myself to the station that will uphold the life and practice I'm trying to be in. Because it's so easy to be reactionary, especially in a city like Philly, where we've had it hard, so we come hard, like whatever the situation is. And I appreciate that about Philly, because it's honest. Like, folks let you know how they feel about a thing, and sometimes it can be kind of rough. But thinking of your question about joy, because I'm not trying to be that like Pollyanna, like when people are having real experiences and life is difficult. I'm not like trying to happy you out of what's real,
Mm-hmm.
because that's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also dismissive of what people are going through, to
Mm-hmm.
tell them to like, oh, just get over it or suck it up or be happy or put on a, you know, but how I think of it is as a buoy in a storm. It
Mm.
doesn't make the storm go away, but it holds you up through it.
Wow.
And that's really how, it's like something to hold on to, knowing that no matter how hard the moment that you're going through, there's that moment where somebody, something in your life is going to release the pressure, and you're going to, like, a lot of us have that friend that, like, no matter how terrible things are, you call them, you're ready to settle into a pity party, and they just say something that makes you laugh out loud, like for real. um, and it's because they recognize how real your situation is, you know, and how much you've been through and how much you've overcome. Because like the archive, they are your archive, they are your memory.
Mm.
They connect you to that thing that you already got over. Not,
Wow.
you didn't get over it, you rose in and through it. Because we
Mm.
don't get over, I ain't over nothing. I ain't over one thing that ever happened, good or bad. um, and so I don't expect people to you know, just, oh, put on a happy face. I expect that the memory of everything you've been through, and yet when your song comes on the radio, you still feeling bad, but you're like, yo, that's my jam, you know, and it just gets in there. And before you know it, your body is going to get free. Um, for just enough of a window to remind you of your capacity, you know, to rise or to tread water, you know, put your shoulder in, or somebody's going to show up, you know, with that pound cake, like no icing, but just like way too much butter and just a little bit too much sugar. And it's going to be like, all right, yeah, you see me.
That's how I feel about my grandma's banana pudding and the peach cobbler and the pound cake and the 7-Up cake and uh you know
1, 2, 3, 4 cake.
and you know, it's these, like, it's the everyday, it's the ordinary, like, that really, what you're saying, will push us through or pull us through or help us rise. And so, oh my goodness, like, I can hear you speak all day, and like on the comments, people are like, yes, 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 and just thank you for sharing just a piece of the project, because this project is so I feel like it can't be encapsulated to like one area. It just is like so vast, so gracious, so giving, even though it's situated in Philly, so diasporic, so community based, so filled with self-determination.
Fuji Chakalia.
And I just want to thank you so much. Please follow Andrea. I've tagged Andrea in the post on Black Radicals, right? Oh, someone said this is nourishing. That's a perfect, yes, it is nourishing. Thank you. And just support museumofblackjoy.com. Check it out. Support. And I want to bring Lisa Osborne on, so we can have a chit chat. For some reason, the interwebs or IG Live is not allowing me to see who's request to join. So we rebuke the spirit of racism and white supremacy.
Get
Over
thee behind us.
Get thee behind us.
You see,
Um,
look, I'm signifying. I got my ladder in the back because it's like, yeah, we climb up Jacob's ladder, no matter what. From the bottom, now we're here.
yes, 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 yes. Oh, yes.
Hi, Lisa! Yay! Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
I'm.
Hey, Andrea. Hey, Jaimiee.
Hey, Lisa. So happy you're here. I was getting worried for a second because I was like, I cannot see any requests to, and it's not popping up. So I was like, we're just gonna thug this out, and I'm gonna.
I was just sitting here the whole time. I'm like, I'll just wait.
I was forward like, with joy, my mantra.
Yes, so I'm so happy, so happy you're here, Lisa. Sorry about that. For some reason, it's not.
No worries.
For the request to join, but I really want to formally introduce you, Lisa, because I have to, you know, do you justice because you do everything too, like Andrea, right? So Lisa Osborne, as Black Public Media's head of emerging media, Lisa Osborne builds programs to support Black talent who work at the intersection of film, technology, and art. Her goal is to increase the participation of Black creatives in XR, AI, and other experimental tech-enabled storytelling. Lisa created the BPM Plus initiative, blackpublicmedia.org/BPM Plus, check it out, which funds creative technologists, hosts tech events, produces classes, and offers fellowships. With Denton Black Film Festival, she created the Technically Brilliant Show, a talk show that profiles Black makers and execs working in emerging tech. In 2020, Lisa collaborated with MIT Open Documentary Lab and MIT Center for Art, Science, and Technology to launch the MIT and Black Public Media Visiting Arts program. She had a blast being a Tribeca Film Festival juror in 2019. When Lisa earned her journalism degree from Northwestern, she dreamed of editing the film, travel, or book section of a print magazine. That plan clearly took a turn.
Clearly just went straight off the rails, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, you're just doing so many wonderful other things, Lisa. So really appreciate you being on the call and with Andrea and I. And I really want to know more about the MIT and Black Public Media Visiting Artist Program, excuse me.
Okay.
No, in the chat, Black Public Media is dropping some info in there. So just wanted to know more about that program and what does it mean for Black creatives?
Yeah, thank you for having us on. This has been a great conversation. The program we created with MIT came out of, they had invited me to give a lecture there in 2018. They have, during the course of the year, every week they bring guest lecturers to Open Documentary Lab. And Open Documentary Lab is it probably over 10 years old, Andrea?
I think it's just 10.
Okay, so, you know, it's a well-established community of documentary filmmakers, journalists, researchers, and academics who are all focused on hybrid forms of documentary. What does that look like? If it's not a 2D traditional film, what does it look like? You know, if you're going to use VR, you're going to use augmented reality, you're going to use data sets and use, you know, make an algorithm to tell a story, a nonfiction story. What does that look like? And so in the wake of doing the lecture there, you know, I had conversation with the director there about, you know, how to increase Black participation in that lab. And subsequently, right before pandemic, she had reached out to me and she was like, Lisa, do you want to make a fellowship? And I was like, sure, you know, so basically once pandemic started, you know, they came back to BPM and we spent, you know, a hot minute like that summer basically designing a program. And it started off as a fellowship. We did a name change last year, and MIT Cast is a third partner. They provide the funding for the program. And basically the idea is like, you know, they have their established way of finding talent. It is not an open call situation. The application, I think, is just sort of up there on their website. You know, it's like rolling. If you think you have what it takes, you know, apply or send them an email. And I think it's a very informal system. And so I think from talking to many, many Black makers and being in the industry for like 25 years myself, I understand that the ways that work for non-Black people don't generally work for Black people to access new technology and to get the ability to learn that technology, practice that technology, fail at that technology the way that white people are given the chance to fail 3-4 times before they have their big hit, you know, or their breakout startup. Black people don't really get that chance. I think Black women, you know, there was a study done in 2016, and I think it was like Black women received something like 0.006% of VC funding.
Wow.
So we don't even warrant 1%. You know what I mean? Like that's like the level of dismissiveness. So I was really excited to, you know, we considered year one. We had two amazing fellows year one. We had Carla Lindale Bishop, who's working on a project called Mapping Blackness, where she's trying to document the histories of primarily Black communities around the US. And she wants to build this big platform to upload, you know, all types of media documenting communities, some of which have already gone extinct, you know, because kids move away if you're in the middle of nowhere. And then Fabiano Mitu, who's a Brazilian filmmaker, he was working on an augmented reality sculpture of a Brazilian religious leader and activist named Mai Beata. And she was a Candomblé, you know, priestess, basically, huge activist in Brazil. And then this year we have Andrea, who's been great. I remember when everybody was reviewing her application during the outbreeding process, we were all just blown away because, you know, Andrea's unusual. You know, she's like a unicorn. And she does not come from a film background, which, you know, 90% of the makers I'm working with come from a film background. They either have undergraduate film degrees, MFAs, or they've just been working in the industry. That's not Andrea. You know, Andrea's a poet and a photographer, you know, and she's self-taught, which is, again, very different than most of the makers that I'm dealing with. But yet, despite that, everybody who read her application, and once we went to the website and looked at the work was like the proof in the pudding, where we saw such humongous potential for what that could turn into. Like, what kind of emerging media project could she actually make, you know, if we gave her a shot, like if we pulled her into this community and kind of threw her into the deep end of the pool with all these people, you know, many of whom have like PhDs and this and that. But I always push back on that narrative, like our application process. Like, I ask you what your schooling is, but I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, whether you went to CSUN in, you know, California or Georgia Tech, or you went to Carnegie Mellon, or you went to Stanford, or you went to Harvard, I honestly don't care. What I'm looking for is like, how does your training match up with what you're doing? And if you had a gap, then how did you fill that gap? You know, in Andrea's case, she self-taught herself. You know, she taught herself certain skills that she didn't have. And then we also are looking for, what are you saying you want to study or work on? What are you saying you want to build? What is this project you're pitching to us? You know, and is it the type of thing we've heard a lot, or is it unusual in any way? So there were no other, there were other projects pitched to us that had to do with, as you could tell, Andrea has great disdain, and rightly so, for collections of things, right? And so there were some projects that were pitched to us that were actually, one of them, you know, was a collection of Black artifacts by a Black collector. But there wasn't anything, no other project was pitching us, you know, a combination of street photography and video collages focused on this idea of a joy practice, which I think is like a radical idea. And, you know, and like I said, everything came together in her application. And then the interview was like, you know, it was, I knew like 10 minutes into the interview, I'm like, oh, she's going to get this. Like, this is not even, we don't even need to talk for 40 more minutes. Like, we're good. You're vetted.
Wait, it was like, you know, I know you don't really know what you're talking about, but we're going to get there, you know?
Oh, totally, totally. And I was, you know, like,
so
true, like, seriously, real talk. Like, I was like, she doesn't have the language, the nomenclature, the practice yet, the technical skills, but she has such a clear interest and an aptitude for it. You know what I mean? Like, she knew that the learning curve was steep. Like, that was the main thing that you and I talked about was, look, you're about to literally get thrown into the deep end of the pool. Like, you'll be doing all the Open Documentary Lab programming, which is all day on Tuesdays and then supplemental stuff during the week. Then on top of that, you're meeting with me every 2 weeks, having production meetings to like figure out the strategy for this, you know, project you want to do, because Museum of Black Joy already existed. And she wanted to, you know, spin off a new side piece of it to say, I want to add a new component. I want it to be, you know, using some kind of emerging technology. I don't know what yet, but my goal that I have in my head is I want to be able to take Museum of Black Joy out into the community and outside of formal, you know, museums or formal cultural centers. And how can I do that? Can I build something that would allow me to just do like essentially a pop-up museum, you know, anywhere, you know what I mean, at any cultural event that's going on, or even outside a youth center? Like, is there something I can build that would provide that experience? So
that's amazing. And like, thank you for sharing. And Lisa, how can folks on the call or on the IG Live find out more info about this program? Yeah.
So we have been dropping links in the chat, but if you want to learn more about the BPM Plus umbrella of projects, please take a visit to blackpublicmedia.org/BPM Plus and follow the hashtag BPM Plus, because we tag everything that has to do with all of Black Public Media's tech programming, our classes, our open calls, and our events. Like we have a massive Andrea. We have a massive event. Our biggest event of the year is Pitch Black, which is the biggest pitch event for Black filmmakers in the U.S. as far as we know. We gave away over $400,000 last year to Black independent filmmakers for projects about the Black experience. We don't know anybody else who's given away that kind of money at a pitch event. And so last year we had for the first time an immersive day, which focused on the emerging tech projects. We had 6 people pitch. 4 of them were our fellows. 2 of them had outside projects who I invited to pitch. This year, Andrea is one of the pitches. And so and another change this year is that for the first time, BPM Plus will be able to offer some prize money. So I want to offer a first and second place. I would love for the first place prize, I think, is going to be $50,000 for someone's project. So it's going to be juried this year, and it's free to attend. So that's going to take place on April 27th of this year. And I'd love for everybody who's on this call to spread the word and to, you know, show up.
Yeah. Can I add just a little something about my experience with Black Public Media? As a self-taught artist, you just get so used to kind of like, and when I say self-taught, I don't mean I'm alone in the world. There are plenty of, you know, mentors and elders and, you know, people on a bus who will stop and, like, if you ask them a question, you know, give you, share what they know. I just mean I'm not formally educated. There's something that you don't even know you're missing when you're just out here kind of trying to problem solve creatively. And that's what actual support feels like. And with Black Public Media and MIT, it has really informed me about what it means to be seen, heard, and supported. And, you know, like just things like, I'm interested in VR. So Lisa used her context, and at my door, you know, I have a VR headset and computer to be able to learn that skill. You know, when, you know, some of my online events, it's like, oh, it's not really well lit. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Lisa, and then it showed up at my door within, it felt like 24 hours. And I was thinking, did I order that on Amazon late last night? Because I know I talked about it and needed it. And it just is filling these gaps. And it's what I was talking about earlier. It made it easier for me. It was one less problem to solve, research. And, you know, so that sense of being seen and heard and valued and supported, I didn't realize how foreign of a concept it actually was. Because a lot of people will tell you, oh, you need to read that and research that. And it's like, I'm already tired. And for somebody to just send it, and this is what you need, and this is how you use it. I mean, it's
It's our pleasure. Seriously, this is what the program is for. This is what Black Pulpit Media is for. We're here to lift up Black makers focused on the Black experience in terms of the content that they're creating. And the BPM Plus program, specifically, I created that in 2018, purposely to reduce barriers to entry for Black makers into emerging text storytelling and to increase participation of Black storytellers in emerging text storytelling. So, and I think also the group chat is another support system on IG. Like, we share links, everybody, all the fellows basically are sharing links with each other. And, it's just a very, there's no competition.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's very much like everybody's doing their thing. Sometimes there might be overlap, but not really. And everybody comes from a totally different background and has different strengths and completely different visual styles. I think that was the other thing with Andrea's work speaking so loudly was, when you can send 10 photographers to go shoot the same event, right? And that when somebody finally develops a visual style that is recognizable before you even know who took the photo, that you can look at the 10 photographers' output and go, oh, there's Andrea's photo, there's Andrea's photo, there's Andrea's photo. That was very clear from going to the website and looking at her portfolio. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, if the photos themselves had been average or subpar, that would have been a different story, but they were, completely the opposite of that. They just blew everybody away. So we were like, we want to give this person a shot. We know she has no technical background. We want to give her a shot. We're going to help her as much as we can. So, and I think that's another key difference with a fellowship or a residency of this level in terms of the community that you're joining and the types of support you're receiving, is that for it to say no previous emerging tech experience required,
Wow,
no PhD required, no MFA required, you see what I'm saying, is like super unusual in terms of, again, the way gatekeepers can design their programs. They think they're creating an unbiased, neutral application process, when in fact, even asking people certain things, unless you make it clear, I'm just asking you, it's not going to be held against you, but just tell me, did you go to college? And if so, what'd you major in? Where'd you go? I think we have to be really careful as arts gatekeepers, and arts programmers and arts curators and funders to really design applications in a way that feel friendly and warm, and ask people human questions. Like, in the first year we launched it, I added a whole bunch of questions about, like, how's your money? Because I was like, and I think the people I was working with were a little taken aback, because it was like, oh, we don't really talk about things like that. And I was like, we're going to talk about things like that because it's a COVID year and it's Black applicants. So, like, we need to discuss the fact that for a lot of Black filmmakers and artists, COVID hitting just completely decimated their money for the rest of the year. You know what I mean? And so, because all my filmmakers were saying to me, Lisa, I was supposed to do 4 festivals, or I had a piece going to, I was supposed to go speak at these conferences. I was supposed to do this, and all of that stuff is being canceled. Like, every day I'm waking up and stuff is being canceled. So that was one of the reasons also I was really grateful that MIT CAST made the funding for this program unrestricted. A lot of arts programs are completely like, you have to put it into the project, and a lot of them require that you provide invoices and receipts for every penny you spend. We don't do that for this particular residency. Yeah.
wow.
Because maybe you need to buy dinner.
Seriously.
Is what
Seriously.
So, and that's real, and it's so appreciated.
Well, first of all, I love this dynamic between you two. I mean, even in our other calls, just like the warmth, the camaraderie. And also, Lisa, you sent me some very helpful things for lighting as well. So it's much, right? I was like, oh, I get these tips too. Like, these links. Thank you so much. And I really want our audience to really check out this MIT and Black Public Media Visiting Arts program. Go online, look it up, apply. And just also.
Yeah, the application will open at some point,
But just
in April
follow.
or May. Yeah, exactly. Just follow Black Public Media's accounts on, Twitter, IG, and that should cover you so that when we do actually say, hey, the application's coming, get your stuff ready, then you'll be aware. But we don't keep the application up. It is there on Submittable, but it's closed right now. So, at a minimum, you can go create a Submittable account just to prep.
Yes, and be on the lookout for that. Follow Black Public Media, follow Andrea. It's what, Urban Archivist. Yes, and support the Museum of Black Joy. And I just want to give y'all
And
the last.
Black women radicals.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'd be like trying to like duck and like, oh no.
No. And come to Philly because we got something for you.
Oh, I will be back very soon, and I'm excited to, hopefully meet you in person, or even if it's a Zoom, because the Rona is still out here.
That's right.
But I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you both, and I wanted to give y'all the last word, and just close it out that way. Is there anything that you would like to say, particularly Lisa too, and I want Andrea to also get a word in. What are your hopes for the MIT and Black Public Media Visiting Arts Program? Where would you like to see it go in the future?
I would like to replicate it. That's my biggest hope. I'd like to replicate it at other organizations, whether those organizations are other universities or similar cultural hubs, that have a deep bench in terms of their community. Because I think that's what makes Open Doc Lab stand out, is that the bench is really deep, and people's backgrounds are quite diverse in terms of their professional experience, their artistic practice, and the things that they're working on in terms of documentaries. So yeah, I'd love to replicate it. I'd love to get funding to take it, have one in the Southeast, have one in the North, Southwest, have one on the West Coast, have one, in the Midwest somewhere. I think that'd be super dope if we could find the funding to make that happen.
Well, we're going to speak it into existence, and it's going to happen. So we're hoping for it. And Andrea, what are your hopes for the Museum of Black Joy? Where would you like to see it go in the future?
Well, I'm revving up to take it to the street with a truly mobile museum that I could show up at bus stops and community centers. And my plan is to have a portable exhibition tower that also has a mobile charging station, because I know that people can use art, but what they really need is to have their phones charged, when they're out there in these mean streets, because you never know when you're going to have to share something important or even get help. So I'm hoping to take it to the street, but long term, I would like to have a brick and mortar museum, where just like a storefront on some like real street, where we still roam free, where we haven't been moved wherever they're trying to take us, as they buy up all our property and make it unaffordable for us to live, like on some main thoroughfare, just a humble spot where people can just come and see themselves reflected with joy.
Well, what a beautiful way to end such a wonderful conversation. I just want to thank Andrea Philly Walls and Lisa Osborne for just being, just being amazing and really supporting the community and giving opportunities and not hoarding opportunities, but serving as resources and community building, so that we can actualize our dreams and the radical possibilities. I think oftentimes our dreams are deferred, and it's beautiful to see how Black people coming together and supporting folks in the arts and Black folks in the arts. So I just want to say thank y'all again. Please, like Black Public Media is saying, follow BPM Plus for all things related to their emerging media program. Follow Lisa Osborne and Andrea Philly Walls, Museum of Black Joy, blackpublicmedia.org, museumofblackjoy.com. And yes, we will be sharing this IG Live. And so we appreciate you so much. And thank y'all so much. I hope I get to meet y'all.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
See y'all.
And thank you everybody who showed up and joined the conversation. We appreciate you, participating.
Yes, it's my first IG Live, so thank you for demystifying.
It wasn't that bad.
It was wonderful.
And also, people are saying thank you in the chat. Someone please said for the program, Lisa, come to Canada, please.
Send me a ticket.
That's
Email
right.
me. Send me the invite.
Oh, thank y'all so much and have a great one. Bye.
Juices.